Welcome back to our journey through existentialism and the meaning of life. I'm Shamim Hossein, and in our previous videos we explored the fundamental existentialist ideas about freedom and how we create meaning through authentic choices and commitments. Today we turn to one of the most profound sources of meaning in human life: our relationships with others. If we're each responsible for creating our own meaning, how do we connect authentically with other people who are doing the same? Let me begin with a personal story. Years ago, I was having coffee with an old friend I hadn't seen in some time. We started with the usual small talk, work updates, mutual acquaintances, when suddenly he looked at me and asked, "But how are you really doing?" There was something in his tone that broke through the social script. For the next 2 hours, we had one of the most honest conversations of my life. That moment captures what existentialists call an I-thou encounter, a relationship where we meet the other person in their full humanity rather than as objects or roles in our lives. Today, we'll explore how existentialist thinkers understood relationships, from the challenge of truly seeing others to the possibility of finding meaning together. Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote, "Hell is other people," in his play No Exit. This line is often misunderstood as simple misanthropy, but Sartre was pointing to something more complex: the challenge that other people pose to our freedom and self-definition. For Sartre, when we encounter others, we experience their gaze, their perception of us that turns us into objects in their world. Under this gaze, we feel our freedom threatened, our self-definition challenged by how others see us. Think about how you might behave differently when you know you're being watched, or how a casual comment about your appearance or personality can suddenly make you self-conscious. This is the power of what Sartre called the look, the way other people's perception can freeze us into objects rather than recognize us as free subjects. I remember giving my first public lecture as a graduate student. I had prepared thoroughly and felt confident in my ideas. But the moment I stepped onto the stage and felt the audience's eyes on me, something changed. I became painfully aware of myself as an object of their judgment, my appearance, my mannerisms, my voice. For a moment, I couldn't access the thoughts I had prepared. This is the existential challenge of being with others. We need others for recognition and connection, yet their very presence can threaten our sense of freedom and authenticity. But the story doesn't end with this tension. Existentialists also recognize that authentic relationships are possible when both people acknowledge each other's freedom rather than trying to capture each other in fixed definitions. Martin Buber, a philosopher whose thinking intersected with existentialism, distinguished between two modes of relating to others: I-it and I-thou. In I-it relationships, we treat others as objects, means to our ends, or instances of general categories. Think of brief transactions with service workers, or how we might stereotype strangers based on appearances. In these interactions, we don't encounter the full humanity of the other person. In I-thou relationships, by contrast, we meet the other person in their wholeness and uniqueness. These encounters can't be reduced to transactions or categorizations. They're characterized by presence, directness, and mutual recognition. Most of us move between these modes constantly. When I'm rushing through a busy day, many of my interactions are I-it. The barista is just someone who makes my coffee, the driver next to me just an obstacle in traffic. But then there are moments of genuine connection, a deep conversation with a friend, an intimate moment with a partner, even a brief but authentic exchange with a stranger, when the veil of instrumentality drops and we truly see each other. Let me tell you about James, a hospice nurse I interviewed for a project on meaningful work. He described how in his early career, he would sometimes slip into seeing patients as collections of symptoms to manage. But one day, an elderly patient asked to see photos of his family. That simple human connection transformed their relationship from medical to personal. James told me, "I suddenly saw her not just as a patient but as someone with a whole life, loves, regrets, hopes, just like me." From that point on, he made a conscious effort to have at least one genuinely human moment with each patient every day, no matter how brief. This illustrates Buber's insight that I-thou moments can happen in any context, even brief ones, when we approach others with openness and recognition. For existentialists, love presents both the greatest possibility for meaning and the greatest challenge to authenticity. How do we love another person without trying to possess them or reduce them to our idea of them? Simone de Beauvoir, whose work explored the existential dimensions of gender and relationships, recognized this tension. In Authentic Love, she suggested we must somehow recognize both the other's freedom and their concrete, specific reality. This means avoiding two common pitfalls: trying to possess the other person by denying their freedom, or idealizing them in ways that don't acknowledge their actual, imperfect humanity. I'm reminded of a couple I know, Marta and David, who have been together for over 20 years. Early in their relationship, Marta had a clear vision of who David was and could be. She was constantly trying to help him improve, essentially trying to shape him into her ideal. After a crisis point in their relationship, Marta realized she had never truly seen David as he was, only as she wanted him to be. Learning to love the actual person in front of her, not her projection, transformed their relationship. This doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior or abandoning all hopes for growth. Rather, it means recognizing that genuine love sees the other person as they are while also respecting their freedom to change on their own terms. The existentialist Albert Camus wrote that real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. In relationships, this means being fully present with another person as they are now, not as you wish them to be in some imagined future. This kind of authentic presence with others is increasingly rare in our distracted age. How often do we half listen to others while checking our phones? How often do we relate to curated versions of others on social media rather than their full, complex humanity? Existentialism challenges us to more authentic presence with others, to listen without immediately formulating our response, to see without immediately judging, to love without immediately possessing. While existentialism is often perceived as individualistic, many existentialist thinkers recognize that meaning can also emerge through solidarity with others. Albert Camus, in his later works, moved from a focus on individual rebellion against the absurd to the importance of community and shared struggle. In The Plague, he depicts a town fighting an epidemic together, finding meaning in collective resistance against suffering. We see this existential solidarity in social movements throughout history, people choosing to stand together against injustice or for shared values. The meaning created isn't imposed from above but emerges from the voluntary commitment of individuals to something larger than themselves. I think of my grandfather who participated in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. He often told me that those years of struggle, despite their hardship and danger, were when he felt most alive and purposeful. The community of activists facing risk together created a profound sense of meaning and connection. This points to an important truth: while we each must make our own authentic choices, we can choose to align those choices with others in ways that create shared meaning and purpose. The philosopher Hannah Arendt, whose work engaged deeply with existentialist themes, emphasized the importance of the public realm, where people can appear to each other in their uniqueness while addressing common concerns. For Arendt, political action wasn't just about achieving outcomes, but about revealing who we are through speech and action with others. This offers a vision of community that doesn't suppress individual freedom but is actually founded on it. People freely choosing to act together based on shared values and commitments. We've explored several dimensions of existentialist thinking about relationships today, from the challenge of the other's gaze to the possibility of authentic connection, from the paradoxes of love to the meaning found in solidarity. What emerges is a vision of relationships that honors both freedom and connection. Existentialism doesn't ask us to choose between authentic individuality and meaningful relationships. Instead, it challenges us to forge relationships where both people's freedom is recognized and celebrated. In part 4 of our series, we'll confront perhaps the most profound existential challenge: our mortality. How does awareness of our finitude shape how we live and find meaning? What does it mean to live authentically in the face of death? Until then, I invite you to notice the quality of your connections with others. Where do you fall into treating others as objects or categories rather than in their full humanity? Where might you find opportunities for more authentic presence with the people in your life? Thank you for continuing this philosophical journey with me. If you found value in today's exploration, please like this video and subscribe for the upcoming parts in this series. Share in the comments how relationships have shaped your own sense of meaning and purpose. I look forward to reading your thoughts. Until next time, remember that in the search for meaning, we are both inevitably alone in our choices and inescapably connected to others.